Um, I'm Michael Otonic. I'm with the Villanova Club of New York City, and we're really excited to get this group together for what I think should be a really fun and interesting and different kind of event. Um, like all of you, we at the club are really excited for basketball season. We're a week away now, and given that it's going to be such a different kind of season, we wanted to get this great group together to put together a little bit of a season preview and really kind of get you ready for everything you need to know for what's going to be a season kind of unlike any other. So we've got Rob Dormish and Chris Bellotti from the class of 2009. Together, they host the Full 40 podcast, which is a podcast all about Villanova basketball. Since we're a week away from the season, now would be a great time to find them on all major podcast platforms and subscribe. And then we've got our special guest, Darryl Reynolds, who you all know as our one of our favorite national champions, and now is a with the Stay Tuned Network, which you should also find and like and subscribe to. Two reminders before we get started: the session is being recorded. And at any point during the session, you can use the Q&A feature to submit live questions. And near the end of the session, the guys are going to answer some of those questions on the air. So with that, let me let you guys take it away.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Mike. Thank you, everybody, and welcome. It's the Full 40 with Chris and Rob, part of the Stay Tuned Network, brought to you by Nova Insider. We're excited to be with you live. First time that we've ever done anything like this, though we've tried before.
We did try before. COVID got us once.
Yeah. In the beginning of COVID, we were going to do something at the Big East tournament with the Alumni Association and what have you, but didn't work out, obviously. But we're here live. We're at my Chatham, New Jersey house, which used to be Midtown Manhattan apartment, but
alas.
But little introductions here. My name is Chris Bellotti. Class of 2009, as Mike mentioned. My partner in crime is Rob Dormish from the class of 2009. And we also have with us the proprietor.
Let's go.
Of the Stay Tuned Network, class of 2017, 2016 national champion, several time Big East champion, former captain, Darryl Reynolds with us.
Thank you.
Quite the introduction.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, seriously. So I guess we got to address the elephant in the room. Is that we got these masks on.
Yeah.
And, we thought about doing this remotely, all on Zoom and what have you, but we just decided we can do it with masks. A bunch of us have gotten tested and we're here live to do it live and bring you this content.
These are the efforts that we go to bring Villanova the content that they need and love.
That's right.
The sacrifices we make. We're here for you.
A couple of special thank yous. Thank you to the Villanova Club of New York City. Really pushed this all the way through to get this to happen. Awesome for them to help work this out with the university as well, which also gets a thank you to set up the Zoom for us and so we can bring this to you. Also, a special shout out to our sponsor, Sanzo, another 09 grad, started this Asian inspired flavored sparkling water company.
Yep.
And it's available in three flavors in calamansi, lychee, and mango. And is available online at drinksanto.com or at your nearest Whole Foods if you live in the Northeast.
Yes. And we'll be sending proprietor Sandro a bill for that.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Without any further ado, we got to get into what's going to happen with this season. And the first things first is we got to talk about COVID. Which we've just been talking about this forever, for like 8 months, but we have to address it. There's been a lot of teams lately that haven't been able to even practice, have had to shut down operations totally because they had an outbreak on the team, and it's causing some of the turkey tournaments that are coming up to be canceled or for teams to withdraw, making it very difficult to get the season underway. The first question that I have is, should we be playing? Obviously, as fans, we want to watch the team play. But I'm curious, Darryl, from a player's perspective, like, you guys are the ones who'd be putting yourselves at risk to play. I mean, I'm just going to sit there on TV and drink beer and enjoy the game or whiskey. But that's all I'm going to do. So how about for you? What does that look like? Are you guys like, what do you think the guys are feeling right now?
To be completely honest, I think they're ready to play. You know what I mean? These kids didn't have a tournament last year. Like, we all know what that time of year brings, how magical that really is. And I think they're ready to play. Obviously, you don't want anybody to get sick. You don't want any outbreaks. I think all of them understand the gravity of it. But if you're asking a player if they want to play this season, especially for these guys in their senior years, no, they want to play.
Yeah. And I guess that's where, from a fan's perspective, like, we've gone back and forth on this a little bit too, of like, hey, there's certainly a public health consideration, but the way I'm looking at it too is like, one, as long as you're not forcing the guys to play and you give people an option to say, hey, you can opt out, like, that's your choice. I think that's a big thing. But two, if you look at it from just a player perspective, from a risk level, those guys are pretty low risk. I mean, these are 18 to 22-year-olds,
life.
Yeah, like, those guys are in great shape. They are very, very low risk of anything serious happening to them. So when I kind of put those two factors together, the fact that they could opt out, they're likely very healthy. And like what you mentioned, most of these guys want to play. This is an opportunity, especially for guys who are thinking, I got a chance to play at the next level. Yeah. This is a showcase for them. So given all that, I'm very much in the camp of, let's find a way to do this. I think you still have to solve broadly for the other folks who, whether it's coaches, whether it's training staff, whether it's the employees at the different facilities, et cetera, you need to make sure that they're healthy. But given all that, I'm very much in the camp of, let's do it. Let's go for this. Let's find a way to make it work.
And generally, I agree with the important note of the guys want to play.
Yeah.
Like, that is a very key point to me, because, and this is critical, they're not paid. Like, yes, they're on scholarship. Yes, they get a lot of advantages from we know the whole, we don't need to litigate all of that, but they're not paid. And so, like, professional sports, we want to play and we're getting paid.
Yeah.
I get that.
For them, it's all passion.
Yeah,
it's all passion. You love this game. And it's like, at the end of the day, the only thing that this should come down for are you taking the proper precautions.
Right.
Now, if you're on one of these campuses and you're going to these parties and you're going to practice the next day, you shouldn't be playing.
Yeah,
you shouldn't be at all.
Yeah.
But if you're taking the proper precautions, you're going to the gym in your room and quarantine and taking care of everything, that takes care of the shit for me. You should let them play.
Yeah. Now as a fan, I ask myself two questions. Like, obviously I want to watch the team. I also ask myself, like, do we deserve college basketball?
Yeah.
I'm not sure we deserve college basketball. We might get it, but I'm not sure we deserve it.
That's a little more loaded.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there. We only have an hour.
Ethics.
But fair enough. So let's talk a little bit about the precautions that have been taking place. And I'll talk a little bit more about my conversation with him throughout the podcast, but I had a chance to catch up with John Shackleton, who's appeared.
You should have just left it like inside source.
Yeah, inside source. Yeah. Phantom inside source. No, because then it'll be, fake news.
That's true.
But anyway,
I mean, let's be real. This is pretty fake news anyway.
we're the mainstream media.
We are.
But anyway, I had a chance to talk to John Shackleton, who is the Villanova performance coach. Obviously, you spent a lot of time with him and still do. You recently had him on.
No. That was so just clear. We did do that workout before this all happened.
Okay.
I just put it out though.
Okay, gotcha. We interviewed him last year on the podcast. We also did a workout with him, which was a lot of fun. Rob handled it better than I did. But talking to him, we asked him, like, hey, what's going on with, like, coronavirus and how are you guys preparing? And basically what he said is, look, the guys get tested with some frequency. The instructions on how to stay safe are clear. But these guys come and we go pretty much full out.
Yeah.
But there are some differences. Once you get off the court, like, that's it. Like, you gotta leave and go separate ways.
Exactly.
So, like, it's like practices are all the same, but that extra element of, like, that chemistry building time where you're all hanging around and whatever, that's gone. That's not there.
Yeah.
And I wonder how that impacts a team like a Villanova, which is so often based on chemistry.
Yes.
And I'm curious to get your take on it, D-Ray. What's, like, how are those guys connecting? Have you talked to any of them? Like,
I have. I talked to a few of them, and they are very aware of how weird it is.
Yeah.
Like they understand that this is not normal. And I got to be honest, if I'm worried about anything as an alum, it's what you just mentioned. The fact that they don't have that time to build. You know how many conversations like after practice is over and some guys getting his shots up over there, one guy's getting his shots up over there, Coach Wright calls a group over to talk to them. You know what I mean? Like those type of conversations really, they make a difference. They make a difference. You know, you go into that locker room an hour after practice is already done, after talking to several coaches, you know what I mean? Or you and your guys competing back and forth for that position and working out real quick. It adds a little extra. So if I'm worried, oh my gosh.
Yo, this is so on brand. D-Ray's microphone is literally falling down.
Say, Jesus, man. Jeez.
This is what Amazon one day gets you.
Oh, no, we're good. But if I'm worried about anything, and I just hold it, I'm worried about anything. I got
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I'm sorry. As y'all see, it's over.
This is
But
great.
if I'm worried about anything, it's not having that chemistry.
Yeah.
It's not. Now, if Rob answers or you talk, I'm going to fix this.
Yeah, it's fine.
And I think that's a really interesting point. And I think the benefit that Villanova has, and we alluded to this on our last episode, was that our team this year is basically bringing back the entire roster, right?
Absolutely.
So a lot of that chemistry ideally is built in. Yes, you obviously want it to be strengthened, et cetera. But if I think about that relative to a lot of other programs right now, also dealing with the same stuff, that's a whole different ballgame where they're starting from scratch. They have to develop those relationships. They have to understand coaching styles. They have to understand what the coaching staff is asking of them. And we don't have that. We don't have as much of that, right? We're building from a higher base.
There's no new players this year.
Yeah.
It's the same team.
It's the same team. Yeah. So ideally you're starting that higher point. And then I think that ideally benefits you when it comes to tournament time.
Yeah.
Should we talk a little bit about the NCAA tournament? I can't get over it.
Yeah, D-Ray's
mic.
had this hanging on to this thing like it's a guitar.
Oh,
I
my
love
God.
it. I love it. I'm gonna speak with so much more vigor now.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Go ahead.
You were like on the national championship court. You were like shooting free throws. Probably you're sweating holding that microphone right now.
Oh my God. So
but,
good.
Sorry.
I was going to say, I mentioned the NCAA tournament. Should we talk a little bit about what's been announced at least?
Oh yeah.
That the NCAA is
just this week, hot off the press, the NCAA announced that the entire tournament, instead of like having satellite sites where you have those pods in the first two rounds and then you have the regionals, etc., the entire tournament is happening in Indianapolis. It doesn't all mean in the same venue,
right?
But it's happening in Indianapolis. And this is something that we alluded to on our last pod, that the Final Four was going to be in Indianapolis this year. But now everything's going to be there. And there is an apparatus in that area for a lot of basketball. You have Butler's home is right there, Hinkle Fieldhouse. And then you have a lot in that area in general that you can leverage and make use of, where the Pacers play, like everything around there. There's a lot of basketball around there. So they should be able to put on the tournament in that area without any problem. The question is, when is it going to be? What is it going to be? How is it going to look like? They said that there's still the plan is for 68 teams, but a lot of things have happened in the professional sports world while we've been going through COVID. Is shorter seasons, less regular season games means less time for teams to create separation. And there's already always angst around who's on the bubble and who's not in and who's out and whatever. Now you throw in COVID into the mix, you throw in a shorter season into the mix. Do you expand the tournament? Do you shrink the tournament to just winners and the top couple teams? Like, how does that all change? And my guess is that they will end up making the tournament one round bigger. That's my guess.
So introduce more chaos.
Introduce more chaos. Yeah.
Great.
But with
we're not going to put you in charge of public health. That's for sure.
No. But I think that what's going to end up happening is that they're not going to have enough regular season games. And the reason why I say that is you look at the programs that are shut down now. You have at least 20, maybe 30. Some just restarted. They're supposed to start next week. Basketball is one of those sports where it's not like football, where, a couple players got COVID, but we tested everyone else and they're all fine.
Yeah.
This is like a couple players get COVID. That's like
the team.
that's like your team. Like you can't play.
Yeah.
And so you have to shut down the entire program for 2 weeks. That's 4 games missed.
Yeah.
Easily. So and with travel and what have you, how do you make those up? I'm not sure that you do.
Yeah.
So you get into a situation where teams are not going to, the regular season as it's planned right now is not going to be how it ends up working out. And there's going to be games that are just straight up canceled and don't happen.
Yeah. I mean, my guess, one of the things you mentioned is when is it going to happen? My guess, take it for what it's worth. We're obviously experts here. I think it ends up happening probably broadly around the same time that it normally does. And the reason I think it's going to happen is, frankly, I think we're going to get, whether it's a month or a month and a half into the season, everything's going to be an absolute mess. And we're just going to kind of be like, yeah, all right, we'll just jump to the tournament now because everything else is an absolute cluster. And that's not what people want, but I do very much expect that to happen, that it'll end up in the same place just because kind of have to, which would be pretty strange, but we'll see.
Yeah, and it's hard. I agree. I mean, I think it'll end up in March because of TV contracts and stadium contracts and the whole 9 yards. I was thinking maybe May, but the problem is, again, it's they're just going to get to a point where if a regular season game gets canceled, it's just not going to get rescheduled.
Yeah. It's gonna be a shit show. There's no way that this season just goes smoothly. And that committee that decides, they have a fun time ahead of them.
Oh my gosh.
The ability to just sit there and break down who should make it and who shouldn't. Like you said, this team had X amount of games canceled. Oh, they had this top tier team on their out of conference schedule and it just didn't get made up. It's gonna be some teams that get snubbed. But I gotta be honest, man, it's all just adding to this year. Like you said, it's a cluster. It really is, but it's just adding to the madness and the musical chair feel of this year.
Well, the one thing you could always say if you're a team, and let's just say we win the national championship, which is a probability.
I'll say a likelihood. I'll go that far.
Okay. Yeah. I'm definitely going to tell everybody that it was the hardest national championship ever.
Absolutely.
But if we lose in the second round, I'm going to say, well, it was a screwed up year anyway, and no one cares.
Yeah, pulling the Lakers on this thing.
Yeah.
Listen, do you understand you have to fight to get here? Nothing. But no, absolutely.
All right, D-Ray, quick take. If we told you had to spend, call it 6-7 weeks in Indianapolis, how do you feel about that? You basically more or less locked in a hotel room.
With or without the tournament?
With the tournament. You're in the tournament.
Okay.
You are playing in 2021. You're locked in a hotel room for 7 weeks. But we'll tell you there's a Final Four on the end of it.
Okay, as a competitor, obviously, yeah, I get a chance to get a ring, absolutely. But as a young man at that age bracket, I'm not stoked about spending time in Indianapolis for that long.
Yeah,
and that's why I said with or without, I don't want to be there that long. But if you have a chance to win a ring behind it, please.
Realistically, it probably won't be that long though, right? It'll probably be like a month.
Yeah, probably.
It'll probably be
probably
a month
around the
because
same time.
you need to get everyone there. Then you're probably off for a week or so.
It might be shorter, to be honest.
Yeah.
Than a month.
Yeah.
Because you don't want people just lingering around. You think of the tournament, it's it takes place every weekend.
That's not going to be the way it happens this year.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay, everyone's off for a whole week at least after selection Sunday.
Yeah.
To get everyone there and get all the testing done and create a, what they call it, not a bubble, but a closed off environment.
Yeah.
Their words, not mine. And then okay, so you do that, you work that out, you get tested, people who need to quarantine do, and then you start playing. Then it calls into question, do you have backup teams?
Yep.
Right? Because if a team goes out because of COVID, they're not going to be able to play their first round game and get the tournament off.
Yeah.
So then you have your potential backup teams, what have you, but you start about a week and a half, 10 days after.
Okay.
And then you run them every other day.
Yeah.
Basically, you play games.
Yeah.
To get to a final. So instead of having a 3-weekend tournament, Villanova makes the second weekend to make the Sweet 16. It's going to be the first weekend and then the second weekend.
Yeah.
And it's going to be it.
Exactly.
You're going to play Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, and then you'll have 3 days off, and then you'll play, Elite Eight, Final Four, National Championship, all in pretty rapid succession.
Yeah. It's going to be crazy. So I got to say, we've spent a good amount of time on COVID. We should get to some more fun things for sure. The inbox is blowing up with questions. It is not. I'm totally kidding. But guys, I know we said submit questions at the end. You're welcome to submit questions during the show. We'll try to answer them on the fly, kind of in segment breaks as well. So feel free to send those over. So we did talk about COVID. I feel like we should talk about what the people came to listen to. The Villanova basketball
The Villanova team. Okay. I forget who's on the team. I'm just kidding.
It's been a while.
So someone who's not on the team, and we should probably talk about him first.
Let's do it.
Is Sadiq Bey.
Sadiq.
And we are looking at less than 40 minutes now until draft time. And Sadiq is up for the draft, and it's looking like he's going to be a first rounder, hopefully in the early half of that, hopefully a lottery pick. Let's talk about him, and then we can go into the team that he leaves behind this year. My understanding is that I've gathered from reading the tea leaves on Twitter and talking to a few folks is that Coach Popovich of the Spurs likes Sadiq a lot. The Spurs have the 11th pick in the draft, so that is right around the area where the pundits were saying that he's going to go. Is that where he ends up? Is that what we think?
I think so. I mean, as far as the Spurs play, he fits right in. He's a system guy. Like, Coach Wright loves the Spurs, and he loves to emulate a lot of the program after that. But he fits right in, man. It's a scary fit. He already has the discipline to be in a program like that. Because the Spurs aren't like any other NBA team where it's the players kind of run things. It's no, this is a system. This is a program. You know what I mean? They're much closer to college, and I would love to see Sadiq in a Spurs uniform, but wherever he ends up, he's going to kill it.
And I think, if I recall correctly, Coach Wright has been on coaching staffs with Popovich for USA basketball. So you have to imagine, again, I'm just guessing, you have to imagine Jay's making some calls and Popovich or his assistants making some calls saying hey, what do we think about Sadiq? And obviously the guy puts in work for 2 years.
Yes.
You have to imagine that rapport is going to pay dividends. So, I mean, I like the fit for the reasons that you mentioned. There's also plenty of opportunity on that team. I mean, the team was fine. They missed the playoffs for the first time in X number of 20 years or something like that. So definitely a team that can go far, and definitely a coaching system you want to lean into. Whether it's the Spurs or somebody else, Sadiq's definitely projected somewhere in that kind of 10 to 15 range. And what's interesting for our Nova listeners is that 10 to 15 range actually has a lot of other Nova alums to look out for. So you've got 10 is the Suns, Mikhail. Spurs, we just talked about. The Kings now have newly acquired. The Kings are terrible. To be clear, that's a place you don't want to end
rough
up.
break for Dante to have to get shipped out to Sacramento. Rough.
Absolutely.
If anyone from Sacramento is listening, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't want to go there.
Yeah, it's totally true. You've got the Pelicans with the 13th pick right after that. So you've got
Josh there.
You've got Josh there. Yeah. So you've got a lot of kind of Villanova connections around there in that, what we'll call kind of the sweet spot for what they've talked about Sadiq. Now, there's some boards that have him falling a little bit farther. It could be as low as 18, et cetera. You never know what teams are looking for, but it seems like there's a good shot for him to be gone, earlier in the evening.
It would seem to me that the question is, if he's going to go after pick 11, it's because someone fell to the Spurs that they had absolutely no intention of falling to them. Yeah. But because to me, for all the reasons that you said, that Sadiq fits perfectly there, the coaching style is similar. We know Pop likes him. To me, I think that's where he's going to end up.
It almost doesn't make sense to him not to.
Yeah. Now, could you see the Suns picking him up with the 10th pick? Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But I'm not sure he falls back behind the Spurs. I really don't.
No, I don't see him going past that. But as Nova fans, we've seen some interesting trades on draft night. So you never know.
For sure.
That's for sure. Oh man, the 76ers still regretting that Mikhail trade. Man,
it worked out for Kills though.
It did.
It
absolutely.
did.
He won in that deal.
And obviously we all remember the great Mikhail Bridges tweet parade of the bubble in July when everyone just tweeted Mikhail Bridges. That's it. Over and over and over again.
Awesome. All right. So good discussion of Sadiq. We've got a lot of good questions actually coming into. We'll get to those, I think a number of these in just a couple of minutes. But obviously we're looking for Sadiq to get drafted. He left behind a gaping hole.
Yeah.
Gaping hole for us to fill.
Played the whole 40.
He played the
the
full 40.
In the whole 40.
Oh my God. Did you go to Villanova? Oh my God, come on.
Isn't that like a diet? Is it whole 40 or whole 30? Yeah.
But obviously he leaves a huge hole that this team needs to fill. So I guess question to you guys, who fills Sadiq's shoes?
It's going to take several guys. It's going to take all of them. You know what I mean? I feel like they're in a position we would have been in if Josh would have left.
Yeah.
Like it's going to take several people to make up because he does so many things, because he rebounds, because he can pass, because he shoots so well from the three. I think it's going to take a lot of Swider. I think Cole is going to have to shoot the ball better. Call it what it is, but I think he's ready for that. I think Slate's ready to kind of step into a bit of a role as a slasher. But Caleb, man, he does not get his credit. Caleb, J-Rod's rebounds might go up with Sadiq out.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But I'd say Caleb, you had to nail down to one person.
Oh, that's interesting.
It
Okay,
is
so
interesting.
Caleb's
as
your
a
guy.
guard.
All right.
I'm gonna tell you what it is. I guess Nova fans don't know this. That kid can jump out the room.
Oh yeah.
Like scary. But like Coach Wright loves that. You look at Randy Foye, it's like, all right, you can play the four because you can rebound. Caleb can play several positions because he can jump.
Randy Foye was a 1-2 on most teams and played the 4 in Villanova.
Exactly. The 1 through 4 for real for. Like I really am high on Caleb. I don't want to hype him up to a point where he can't live up to it, but like I like that kid.
Well, I can tell you he's the nicest kid on earth.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I want to root for him.
Yeah.
We've had the pleasure of meeting Caleb once before. But he was like the nicest, most polite guy.
Yes.
And it was funny because as I mentioned, I talked to Shaq, and Shaq was like, yeah, a little too. He's from Louisiana. He's like too Southern polite. Like I'm like Philly. I want him to be mean and tough and whatever. But he said he's mean on the court. Though.
Yes, he turns into a different person. It's kind of weird. I remember like seeing it. He would do certain things in practice, and I'm like, this kid's a little off. He's gonna fit right in. Like, he's gonna work just well.
But I do agree with your point broadly on Sadiq Bey, and I think you're gonna have a Sadiq by committee.
Yes.
But I think we play this game, and everyone likes to play this game of who fills this person's shoes, and it's not really the same.
Yeah.
The only reason why I think we do talk about it for this particular team is because everyone else is the same play. Like we're returning the entire team except Sadiq.
Yeah.
Versus like in the past where like the 05-06 team left and it was like who fills Foy and Ray and Lowry's shoes, and it's like no one. It's just going to be a different team.
Yeah.
So I think that I really think it's going to be by committee, and I think Caleb's good. I mean, Jermaine is going to have to step up.
Absolutely.
Like
absolutely.
We've been talking about Jermaine as an X factor.
Yeah.
For years now.
Yeah.
Like, Jermaine Samuel's gonna be an X factor this year. Oh, he's gonna be an X factor this year.
That really can't be the case ananymore.
It can't be.
Yeah, you gotta know what you're getting out of him.
Yeah, like he's gotta be consistent. Like, okay, he doesn't have to blow up for 20 every game, but like, are you gonna get consistently like, I don't know, 2 for 5 shooting and from deep and get like 8 boards and 11 points or something like that out of Jermaine, or is it going to be Jekyll and Hyde, disappearing act, whatever? With the rebounding, the size, and the strength, he has the tools to play that role.
Absolutely.
Obviously, Sadiq had a better handle, though neither of them were known for their handle. But Jermaine, and then as you said, Swider's going to have to fill up the bucket. I mean. Sadiq shot like 45% from deep last year.
He had a ridiculous.
He had a ridiculous. It was probably an aberration.
But if you get enough, it's like you ever seen Moneyball?
Yeah.
Remember when they were trying to figure out how to replace the guys in Moneyball, and he just like, listen, this guy does this guy does that. You combine all of those, you get his batting. Like that's what it's gonna take for them to replace Sadiq.
Yo, I'm putting a stake on the ground. You guys did this committee thing. Justin Moore's my guy.
Yeah.
If I'm picking offense, I'm picking one player that's gonna make a difference. My money's on Justin Moore. That guy was absolutely ready to go last year. He is the guy, I said this in our episode, that I think could make a Sadiq Bey-like jump this year. That he goes from, 10, 11 points a game last year to could easily be 16, 17 points. And he has that attitude about him too, that he's just going to take over. And I think that combined with the body and he's just ready for Big East play, like the dude's going to go absolutely
Well, we
wild
touched on
this
a
year.
couple of these guys, so let's talk a little bit about some of the what I heard from Shaq
Okay.
talking to them. And Shaq said that Moore and Caleb are both like 215. Mind you, they're not your size.
Yeah. That's heavy. To
yeah.
be like 6'3".
Yeah, but like 5-6% body fat.
Yeah.
So like these guys are.
So it's basically like your build. More or less. Yeah.
No, mine is like 21.5% body fat.
It just made like something just clicked. As we're talking about who's gonna replace Sadiq, we're saying like he got injured in a game.
Yeah.
All these guys are a year better.
Yeah. Oh, total.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm more than like confident that they're gonna be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
Almost to a point where it's better because he ate up so many minutes. Now you can kind of divvy him up.
Right.
You know, some guys have a bit of a longer leash.
Yeah.
We're gonna see.
Totally.
Can we talk? We've had a couple questions about this too, and we didn't really address it. Let's talk a little bit about Brian Antoine.
Oh, the injury.
So obviously Brian Antoine last year, unfortunately, like more or less got a red shirt, as pretty much everybody listening knows. He obviously just got announced, had kind of another setback on that. So the question is, how does that impact his advancement? What do we really expect from him working back, given from where he is already?
So my understanding is that his injury doesn't allow him, and I might be using the wrong arm, doesn't allow him to
It's the right.
go like this.
It's the right.
Oh, it's the right arm. He can't go like this.
Yeah.
He can go like this.
Yeah.
And he can go like that. That's what I understand. It's not the same injury that he had last time.
Okay.
But my understanding is that it's going to be like 5-6 weeks. So he's going to miss most of the pre-January season.
Yeah.
Again, all COVID aside.
Yeah.
But that after that, it's going to be a little bit of pain management. But he is able to. He's literally able to shoot.
Yeah.
And he's literally able to do certain weightlifting, even with his arms. He just can't go. He can't move like this.
Yeah.
So obviously, you can't play defense.
Exactly.
And you can't practice with the team and the whole 9 yards because it's dangerous. But we're looking probably at a timeline of he won't be able to practice with the team or return to full basketball activities for 2020.
Mm-hmm.
But what does that mean for him? I feel bad for the kid. Obviously, he came back late into last year. The team had already started to take shape, and you could just tell that the speed of the college game, he just wasn't there because it wasn't only like a red shirt, but you're playing in practice. It was a full-blown injury. He wasn't playing. What does that mean for him? Unfortunately, I think we have to have tepid expectations for him because obviously here's a guy who probably had his sights on, a 2 and done type performance. Now he's in school for the second year. He's injured his shoulder again. I have to imagine, like, you had injuries.
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel like going back to work after knowing you have an injury? Is it weird? Is it like
it nags on you until it doesn't? You know what I mean? I'd be lying if like you feel it. What I'm worried about with him is the time he's missing. I'm not worried about his confidence. I'm not worried about his confidence at all. I'm worried about the time he's missing off the court. You can't buy experience.
Yeah.
And like you said last year when he got in, you could kind of see it. It's like this is moving a lot faster than he's used to. The game slows down for you as you're out there.
Yeah.
Him not being out there for this long, I'm more worried about that than anything because he's a talent. Like he doesn't miss anything as far as the game goes. Like I said, he's not lacking confidence, but it's that ability to keep up with the game and slow it down when you need to that you only really get through a ton of experience.
And there's kind of a follow-up question that happened too of like, what does that mean for our team in general? And this is kind of bad. I will guiltily say, hey, I've been like talking so much about our team. And I think we did this a little bit on the podcast as well too. We talked about a bunch of guys. We talked about Colin, we barely talked about Colin, which is crazy. We talked about J-Rob, we talked about Justin Moore, et cetera. There are so many core guys that I think about as like, those are going to be the drivers of our team. Frankly, right now, Brian isn't one of those core drivers as I see it.
No.
And like, yes, he's going to miss time. And I think like D-Ray, what you just said, it's likely going to be challenging for him to work back in, especially as these other guys are moving ahead. And we have folks who already had that season, not only going through practice, but also going through game speed. So he's catching back up again. Yeah. But I think the headline for our team is, I don't really think it changes expectations at all, to be honest. I think his ceiling this year in my mind was like a solid role player. I don't think he was going to be a star, and our success wasn't going to be predicated on him becoming a star. So from a fan perspective, I don't think the expectations need to change.
No.
I think, but also from a fan perspective, you feel for the kid.
Oh,
like
yeah.
you know, he's working hard. You want to see him succeed, but I'm still banking on a title.
And I tend to agree with that take, because if you look at his position, guard, you have three of the best guards in the country, with Colin and Justin and Caleb, and you also have you're pretty stuffed at the wing and forward position too. So it's not like Jay's gonna want to run four guards. Like he's got J-Rob, he's got Samuels, so you have plenty at the forward level. So the guard positions are going to be, Jay never squeezes the guard position, but like the minutes are not going to be like, oh, we got 120 minutes or 160 minutes of guard minutes in every game. It's going to be less. Yeah. And so you're going to see those three guys eat them up. Now, if one of those guys gets hurt, gets COVID, can't play, whatever it may be, then you might see a slip. Yeah. Right. Like we talk about it as if like, okay, well, all the injuries are now behind us. Right. Like, but we've seen mid-season wrist injuries, hand injuries, concussions. Yeah. Like we've seen people have to sit. So expectations should remain the same, but the depth all of a sudden becomes that much more important.
I was about to say, because to me, when I look at Brian Antoine's game, especially amongst this team, I saw at best what Dante was in 18. That guy who, like, you can see
it's pretty good.
Yeah, no. Obviously, I'm saying, but like, obviously, like you said, the starters are probably going to be the starters. He's up against some of the best guards, they're heavier and all that. But as far as like that X factor, that Jermaine used to be, but like that true X factor, not the X factor. Well, obviously Dante had some rough games at the beginning of the season, but like that X factor, as in if he's on, they're winning by 20. Yeah. And if he's off, they could still win by 5 or 10. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it's like, if he's doing his thing, you have no chance of beating him at all. That's what I was expecting out of Brian Antoine.
No, that's fair. So we talked about the team a good bit. We had a couple questions about this too. Why don't we pivot a little bit to talk about the schedule and talk about who we are potentially playing? And maybe let's just talk broadly, real quick. We can probably do it pretty quickly about the Big East and what we expect from the Big East, or I would say this year, lack of Big East is my headline.
Yeah. Why do you say lack of?
Because the Big East, in my mind, boils down to, well, we have a new entrant, UConn, fine. But the Big East is basically Villanova and Creighton are both great, and everybody else is not great.
Oh, you got Seton Hall, Providence. UConn's going to be good.
I think this is
I don't know.
Year, bro.
I don't know.
It's not going to be as good. Last year was ridiculous.
Yeah,
but last year was ridiculous. But I'm not where you are. That's a hot take.
You're like perfectly in the middle. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're in the right spot.
Well,
you're in the right spot.
Well, it's easy to take this position of like, oh, it's not the hardest and it's not the easiest. Like that's obviously an easy take to make, but like, I still think it's going to be on the harder side. I think this is going to be much closer to last year than it was 2 or 3 years ago. Now, that said, I think that we are better comparatively than we were last year. Because last year we were a team that was like, okay, you're going to fight their way into the top 10, potentially make a deep run, had to learn on the fly. Now we're returning everybody.
And they all know it.
And so now, Villanova is going to be Villanova again.
But I will say this. There's that target on their back thing too. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like people know how good they're going to be. And like, I'll call it what it is. A 17. You feel it different if every night everybody's looking at you as this is our shot. Yeah. This is our shot to take out the best. Like if you're taking that from every single team night in and night out, especially with a season like this, it's probably going to be shortened and a lot closer together. Like that wears on the team.
I guess my point is like why I'm so bullish on this team relative to the rest of the Big East is, take preseason rankings for what they're worth. Villanova is 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. Creighton is like 10, 11-ish. Very good team. And had they returned, I'm blanking on his name, one of their guys, they would have been a top 5 team as well. There's nobody else in the Big East that's in the preseason top 25. And I think this goes back to the point that we made earlier about the fact that teams that are bringing back a lot of their players and have that existing chemistry are going to have a disproportionate benefit this year than other years. And those two factors to me, I'm just like, yeah, maybe it's going to be tough. I really don't think relative to, if I compare it to last year, no way. We're gonna crush.
Well, I can tell you that Georgetown is going to suck.
Oh God, they're terrible. They're terrible.
Georgetown's not going to be any good.
Not upset about it, but it is like, come on, man.
Oh yeah,
It's just
totally.
You as a Big East person, you take pride in Georgetown being good. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not good enough to beat us.
No,
But good.
No.
Respectable.
correct. Beat everyone else.
Exactly. Yeah.
Lose to us by
Exactly.
40.
Lose us by 40.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's a good ending. I'm happy.
Fair enough. So we've got so that's the Big East, I guess.
Let's talk a little about the out of conference schedule.
Yeah, which is
The
Fire.
supposed out of conference schedule.
fire, absolutely fire.
Yeah, it's
Again,
like the best out of conference schedule I've seen Villanova put together.
potentially playing Baylor, who's number 2.
Yep.
Assuming they beat Arizona State, who is I think number 16 or so. So one of those will play. UVA number 4, Texas number 19.
UVA's at MSG
UVA is an MSG, right? Assuming that's
with
allowed.
all those fans that are going to be there. It's going to be sick.
Yeah. Couple Big 5 teams, St. Joe's, Temple, and then 4 Big East, Georgetown. So that's a win. Marquette, DePaul, and Butler. Oh, so you just said just out of conference.
Just out of
excuse me.
conference. You're
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about
Yeah,
pre-January. Yeah. I mean, like, look, you look at Texas, Baylor. So the Big 12 is really good again this year, as always. And you got Virginia on the schedule. And I mean, you just take those 3 games by themselves, and you're like, oh well, shit, that's a hell of a schedule.
Yeah.
So
I love it. Let me battle test it.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
if we can make the games happen,
Yeah.
if we can make the games happen, this team is going to get a lot of experience really early, then have the chance to go through the Big East, grow as a team, and then be ready for the dance.
Exactly.
And let's talk about the fact that there's going to be no fans in the stands.
Yeah.
Or sorry, there will be some students in the stands for some of the games, I believe. No
Well,
season ticket holders.
I
which
mean, that was
doesn't change the volume of the pavilion at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said it.
Terrible.
But I mean, you know it. You can't even lie. It's
It plays in our favor. Dramatic.
having no fans plays to our favor.
Dramatic.
We are used to this.
It's like those. I think we were texting about it. I said it's like those preseason scrimmages when you would see such and such went off for 30, such and such went off for 40.
Booth had like 70 points. against
Exactly.
us.
But it's like part of it is to call it what it is. It's like we like playing in quiet places because practice is so intense. For it to be quiet in the gym, fans almost like I would never call a fan a distraction, but a quiet gym is like what we're used to at that level of intensity because practices are just as hard as the game.
How much of an advantage does that give a Villanova program relative to some of these others?
I would say a huge one, man. I would say a huge. I don't want to gas it too much. I
Yeah,
don't want
yeah.
to sit there and act like it's going to be night and day.
Let's just talk about target on the back, because target on the back involves when you go away
Yeah,
to other teams,
yeah,
and like you go to Creighton
yeah.
and you got 20,000 fans breathing down your neck on top of it. Now I understand 94 by 50, but like
But it's not the fans. Here's what it is. And this is probably this is the real advantage. It's not the fans that you're worried about. It's when they hit a couple threes and now they're feeling it because the fans are back. In the
right,
game.
right.
But when they hit a couple threes or they go on a little run and they don't have that crowd, some of the other players depend on that crowd to hype them up.
I'm envisioning like you ever play Wii and you make a putt and
Yeah,
golf and like,
yeah.
sort of like golf putt.
like seriously, like all jokes like you picture what's a good show? You picture a Miles Powell,
Right.
without a crowd.
Yeah.
He's still a bad man. You see his workout, still a bad man. But he feeds off of that being able to put his ear to the crowd when he hits a three, and being able to look at somebody and dap somebody up. That feeds the morale of that team.
Right.
You know what I mean? So them not having that's what plays in our advantage. Really.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Like practices and empty gyms.
Good stuff. All right.
Any questions?
Yeah, this was an interesting question. I like this one too. So we normally do predictions about what our record is going to be because that's the logical thing you predict. So this question was a bit of the opposite. And I'll rephrase it slightly. What percentage of the games do you think that we have scheduled and or will be scheduled that will ultimately get canceled?
All right. So you have 20 Big East games and you have what, like 6 at a
Yeah.
conference?
Yeah,
or
we've
7?
got 1, 2, 3. Yeah, let's call it 5.
Okay. So like 25 games. So
Yeah.
let's say there's 25 games.
Yeah.
How many get canceled? Like
6.
so 6. Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say something like like 7 or 8. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's.
you lose 2 weeks. I mean, and it doesn't have to just be you. It could be another team.
I think it's at least a third of the season.
Yeah. I think you're looking at Villanova 1 seed at 14-3.
Yes. I think that's so right. And that's why I mentioned earlier, I think the tournament gets played in March because we're getting to this point where I don't know what we're doing, guys.
Let's just
start.
We're gonna take the AP preseason rankings, and that's who's in the tournament.
Are you still in 25? Yeah, all right, come on now.
Any other funny questions there?
Okay, so Darryl's really getting pressed on this one. So Darryl, obviously you liked Caleb as kind of your breakout guy, but the fans want to know, give us one more breakout guy that you're looking for on the team.
I mean, what is a breakout at this point? Man, they all are so good.
I mean, okay, I'll define it for you. It's not Colin, it's not J-Rob, it's not Justin Moore. Slate. Okay.
Slate. Because the leap that he can make is so big.
Okay.
And the space that he can make up would be so, you know what I mean?
I think Slater's a good pick to have a breakout season.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors for that. First off, he's gonna Swider and him are gonna fight for minutes.
Yeah.
Swider is going to see more time if he's got a hot hand.
Yeah.
But Swider's deficiency, I think is unfortunately just his mobility.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that changes drastically with working out more.
Yeah.
Slater, on the other hand, is fast. He's athletic. He's quick. He's long. He's got all those factors. So if skill-wise he can improve, all the things that Slater can do are skill improvement, which can be done.
And on a team that has so many, like you said, we haven't really talked about Colin and his shooting ability.
Yeah.
Justin
Just
and his shooting ability. Caleb and his shooting ability. The fact that J-Rock can step out and shoot. Slate doesn't have to go in there and play. He doesn't need offense.
Yeah.
You have a guy that if he's in there just defending his heart out, coach is leaving him in.
Yeah, that's true. That's a
and
great
then
point.
that's when he starts to get his dunks, and he's a great slasher. That's when he starts to get all that. I'm pulling for Slate.
I like that. The setup I hadn't thought about that, but the setup for him is very favorable. He's not going to be the focus of defenses. He's going to be able to benefit from that. And I like that idea of, his confidence is growing and just kind of building throughout the game.
If he's disciplined enough on defense with his intangibles, like you said, his quickness, his lateral speed, his strength and things like that, if he's disciplined enough on defense, Slate's the guy you're sending to shut somebody down. Yeah. Slate's the guy who's taking that Sadiq role of you have X, Y, and Z. He has long arms. He has all the intangibles with Slate. It's up here. If he can get this right, he can stay focused.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Slate can be
like
that
it.
man.
All right. So, all right. I like this question. We'll do one we'll do this one first. Okay. And then we got to jump to another topic. So what do we need to improve on the most from last year to make a serious run in the tournament?
Defense.
Yes. Namely that first line of defense. Too many teams got in the middle last year. The perimeter defense. Sorry. Perimeter defense. Those guys, they got to be able to keep people in front of them. J-Rob and Dada are good around the basket, but you don't want it to get to that point. Yeah. You know what I mean? So they keep people in front of them. I see how they score. You think about a Cole Swider or a Brandon Slater contesting your 3-point shot. That's hard. And then the strength of Justin Moore. No guards just bullying him. They have all the intangibles, but it's discipline and experience. Yeah.
You want to talk about something that was just missing from the last couple of years' teams. Now, the last year team did it a little bit by committee, and Sammy will start to do it at the end of the year, whatever. But that 1-2-2 press, where you used to have McHale, who would just disrupt everything. In 16, 17, 18. Slater, again, going back to him, could be that guy who plays that long guy who just disrupts the defense, makes them take 10, 15 seconds to even get into their offense, which makes the perimeter defense that much easier for everybody. So you're still going to have guys Collins an all collegiate player, but again, length and lateral quickness not there as much. But you do have Caleb and you do have Justin. So I do think that if you start to see Slater in that role, I think that's a good sign for this team.
Think of what happened with DA his junior year. We were just talking about this when we got him.
Yeah.
Dwayne Anderson.
You
know what I mean? What he turned into.
Shouts class 2009.
Exactly. And y'all weren't expecting DA to go in and get 20 points. If he did, great.
Yeah.
But you knew for sure if he steps in front of somebody, they're not getting around him.
Yeah.
You have the offense.
All right. That was a pretty good answer there. So there's a couple kind of related questions to this. So I want to pivot a little bit. We've always been talking about like very much on the court performance. It's interesting. We started off the court, talked about on the court. I kind of want to pivot back to something that is a little bit more off the court, was, really center stage over the summer. We did a number of interviews around it. We talked to you, D-Ray, about it. And that's really this theme of social justice. And I think what's been interesting is, the team, especially Villanova in particular, among other teams, and a number of the players have been very vocal about this, have been actively out there, whether it's leading protests, making their voice heard,
The guy we haven't talked about at all on this podcast is Demir Cosby-Roundtree.
Absolutely.
Front and center.
Yes.
Front and center.
Yeah.
And that's something that, while there have been a lot of other newsworthy topics over the past, call it 2 months or so, that's something that I imagine is not going to go away. So I guess, question for discussion that we were getting is, should this team, and do we expect this team to be protesting at all in some of these games?
I'm not sure. I know the Big East as a whole is doing the Black Lives Matter patch, and I was very happy to see that. I got to be honest, though, at this point, I don't believe in beating a dead horse. I'm not saying this stuff is over, but I would be very interested to see how teams protest at this point, because they're going to do it.
Yeah.
They're going to do it. But I just don't think it's going to take the same precedent that it did over the summer with everything happening, as intense as it was.
Well, yeah, totally get that point. That being said, you never know, something else is going to happen.
Yeah.
That would re-bring this to the forefront.
I think if something else happens, then it's going to be hard to finish the season.
But we did see the NBA players, when they protested, they got a lot of stadiums to open up, and those stadiums served as voting sites and things like that, which help enfranchise voters in cities and stuff like that. But we go back and should they, shouldn't they, whatever. Like I think the answer is they should do what they feel is right, and they should feel free to do that.
Exactly.
Like if the players are sitting there and they're like, I want to, put my hand over my heart, or I want to take a knee, or whatever it may be, whatever it may look like, let them do it. Let them have that voice. Let them have it. They're college students. Yeah. That's what we did in college. In college, you're testing yourself. You're like exploring your boundaries and whatever. It's a good time to actually explore that. Mm-hmm. And if there is sort of ramifications for that, then a good time to learn from that experience too. So should they, if they want to, I think they should.
When I say let them, I don't mean the colleges, because I can straight up say, when we were there and everything happened, Coach Wright really had our back on whatever you guys want to do as a team. Yeah. I'm with it. I'm saying let them to the fans. You know what I mean? Like understand the stress that these young men are under, understand what they're going through, understand this how they express themselves, understand that there's somebody else, somebody under that jersey. Yeah. You know what I mean? That jersey they don't just take off the Villanova on the front of their chest and they're just, everybody else. It's a different world they're living in sometimes. So let them in the sense of understanding.
And it is a different world that they're living in. And I mean, we talked to Randy Foy over the summer. We had a great podcast with Randy Foy, and thanks again to him for coming on the pod. But I mean, he said that even today, famous NBA player, whatever, get pulled over because he's driving too nice of a car. Yeah. This is real. This is not just like it's not like, oh well, you're on Villanova Happy Main Line and it's like there's nothing going on. Like shit happens, and you got to be prepared for it.
Yeah. And I liked one thing, D-Ray, you had mentioned about I can take this jersey off, but there's a person under, and there's a set of experiences under that jersey. And there's one of our questions was, how do you respond to people who say, keep politics out of sports? And that to me is really the answer. Like I could say keep politics out of sports, but like I can't keep you and your experiences out of sports, because like that's a person, and that person on the court has a set of experiences, and like they have a right to amplify that and share that, and we have a right to should have the patience to listen to that and absorb that.
So, and these issues have been going on forever. Not to beat a dead horse, but these issues have been going on forever. But I'm just calling it what it is. A lot of it came down to this election. Yeah. To call it what it is, like it's the people that were empowered, the people who weren't forward thinking, who were empowered by what happened around this election. That's really what a lot of the protests were about. Like you said, they started opening up voting centers because they understood if you have somebody at the helm telling people who have this hate in their heart or this want to just oppress other people, and you're telling them it's okay to do that, that's when the real issue comes in.
How is the I'm curious, D-Ray, on your take on this. Like, if we think about kind of the athlete's role changing in sports, do you feel that's something that, obviously we mentioned, Dada has been very vocal and very out there leading. Do you feel like that's shifting and like the team has more like feels like an obligation to do something around that, which maybe wasn't there quite as much in the past?
Yeah, I mean, because like, let's call it what it is. Self-branding is everything now. You know what I mean? So people aren't just looking at people to do one job or just be one thing. You're an entire brand. How do you feel about this? Where do you stand on that?
Yeah.
What do you want to do about this? Who are you going to talk up to? You know what I mean? So it's like, as that grows, especially in college sports, you see they're about to get their likeness and things like that. Would have been off that. As you become a brand, now people are way more interested in how you think and how you feel outside of just your product, which is playing. And it used to be, oh, you're just a player. We see you on the court. We don't really see you. Then they started talking. You know what I mean? Then you start doing more interviews. Now you start having these brands. Now everybody being a brand, people are interested in what they're investing in.
Yeah,
perfect.
You know what I mean?
Awesome. Well, we are just about at time.
How are we looking on questions though?
I think we've hit a lot of the questions at this point.
Okay.
We kind of made sure to kind of weave them in throughout. So there was kind of one lighter question I did want to end on was, what is everyone's favorite drink, or I guess I'll say food as well, for watching Thanksgiving games? And I'll start it off, which this was actually like news to my wife the other day. We were out and I ordered a hot toddy and she's like, oh, good choice. And I was like, yeah, it's like one of my favorite, fall drinks. And she's like, really? I had no idea. We've been dating for, let's see, what is it? It's 2020 right now.
It's been a million years.
For like
it's been a long
12
time.
and a half years.
Yeah.
So yeah, you learn something new every day. So I'm going to go with hot toddy as my answer.
Straight whiskey.
Oh, okay. All right.
On the rocks. I do
Okay.
whiskey.
All right.
It's a guilty pleasure. Wawa has this turkey sandwich.
Oh, the turkey gobbler.
That they throw
Oh,
some
yeah.
cranberry and stuff.
Oh,
in
yeah.
I don't know what it is about that in the game. It feels right. We were talking about this before we got on, like that bar full feel,
Yeah.
it feels right for games. Yeah, that for some reason that just it's the right amount of sloppy.
Perfect.
I like it. I like it.
Oh, that's amazing. Awesome. All right. Well, I think that about
That does it.
that about does it, I think, for us.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah.
Thank you, D-Ray, for coming on the pod. Thank you to the Villanova NYC Alumni Club and to Villanova University for helping set up with the Zoom, and to our sponsor, Sanzo, drinksanzo.com. Really appreciate everyone coming out. This will be recorded and is being recorded, and it will go on our podcast feed, and you can catch us on Spotify, on iTunes, on SoundCloud, sometimes on YouTube when we feel like it.
Yeah. Occasionally.
And definitely check us out on Instagram and Twitter at the Full 40. So thanks again to everyone for listening, and as always, let's go Nova.